Wealthy millionaire husband weds mistress. Pregnant wife's unexpected gift leaves him in panic. There are moments in life when a single, unexpected act can unravel a web of deceit. On what was supposed to be a joyous day, Avery, a devoted wife, turned the tables on her husband. Nicholas, who had secretly married his cunning mistress Juliana, by calmly presenting a gift that exposed every lie and left him reeling in panic. This is a story of betrayal and quiet resolve, where one woman's measured response reshapes a narrative of deceit into a powerful declaration of independence. Avery Andrews always believed in love, commitment, and the promises woven into marital vows. She came from a close-knit family in upstate New York, where everyone believed that marriage was a sacred bond built on respect and loyalty. Meeting Nicholas Evans felt like fate. He was charming, intelligent, and possessed a warmth that put her instantly at ease. They locked eyes in a busy Starbucks near Columbia University, and from that moment, Avery was convinced that destiny had played its part. Nicholas, for his part, seemed the perfect partner. He had a steady career in finance, working with a large investment firm that managed portfolios for wealthy clients. He exuded confidence in a way that was contagious rather than overbearing. Early in their relationship, Avery noticed how Nicholas insisted on planning elaborate dates, romantic dinners with breathtaking skyline views, weekend getaways to cozy B&Bs, and thoughtful gifts that always reflected her personal interests. He was, as her friends put it, a true gentleman. So when he proposed after 2 years of dating, no one was surprised. Friends and family alike felt Avery had found her ideal match. Their wedding was a tasteful affair, intimate, elegant, and held at a scenic vineyard in the Hudson Valley. Under soft, twinkling lights and surrounded by the gentle hum of a string quartet, they exchanged vows that brimmed with hope. For the first few years, their marriage was as close to perfect as one could imagine. They built a home that reflected their shared tastes, a tasteful apartment on the Upper East Side, filled with the vibrant paintings Avery collected. When Nicholas received a promotion that required more hours at the office, Avery was quick to support him. She respected his ambition and dedication to his career. Her own work-from-home job as a freelance graphic designer gave her flexible hours, so she figured she could be the steady rock at home while he ascended the corporate ladder. She would cheer him on each time he hit a milestone or received a bonus. Life was moving along at a comfortable, promising pace. However, cracks began to appear in their seemingly flawless relationship when Nicholas started mentioning Juliana Roberts, a new junior manager hired to revamp their company's client acquisition strategy. "She's brilliant at what she does," Nicholas often remarked at the dinner table. "She's got this knack for closing deals." Over time, Avery noticed that casual references to Juliana became more frequent and more glowing. Soon, it was Juliana saved the day in that meeting, or Juliana came up with the perfect pitch. Avery's intuition nudged her gently at first. Might Nicholas be developing a crush? She dismissed the idea because he'd never given her a reason to doubt his loyalty. He never hid texts, never came home smelling of unfamiliar perfume, never acted strangely. Nonetheless, as Nicholas's hours extended, further business dinners, weekend work retreats, and urgent late-night calls, Avery's suspicions grew. She tried to quell her anxieties. After all, had he not always been transparent? Hadn't he invited her to company holiday parties to introduce her to his colleagues? Yet she also noticed that whenever Juliana approached at these events, Nicholas's attention became laser-focused on her. Their conversations seemed filled with inside jokes. Avery's silent alarm rang louder, but she still tried to trust the man she loved. It wasn't until months later that Avery discovered something more tangible, a jewelry receipt for a Tiffany and Company necklace hidden away in Nicholas's suit pocket. He had never given her that necklace. In fact, he'd never even mentioned buying her a gift recently. Alarmed, she attempted to bring it up gently, but Nicholas brushed it aside with a vague explanation about a client gift. Avery wanted to believe him, yet doubt gnawed at her. The next steps on her path to discovery would shake the very foundation of her world. If the seeds of betrayal had been planted, she was about to see them blossom in the harsh light of reality. The moment Avery found that receipt for an expensive necklace, her mind began spinning worst-case scenarios. Yet she told herself not to jump to conclusions. She remembered all the advice she'd heard from her mother. Communication is key. Talk to him. So she tried. One evening, she set up a candle-lit dinner in their apartment. She prepared Nicholas's favorite meal, roasted salmon with lemon and dill, and poured 2 glasses of chilled white wine. When he finally walked through the door, nearly an hour late, Avery offered a warm smile. "Nicholas, I've been worried about you. I know work's been hectic, but we need to talk about something," she began, trying to sound gentle. Nicholas barely glanced at the table setting. He loosened his tie, muttered something about a rough day, and moved to the bedroom to change his clothes. Avery followed, her heart pounding. "I found a receipt for a Tiffany necklace," she said softly. He froze for a fraction of a second, then forced a laugh. "Oh, that. Right. It was for a client, Elizabeth Roth. She's been with the firm for years, and hinted she'd switch if we didn't show some gratitude. You know how high net worth clients can be. I had to keep her happy." It sounded plausible, but his eyes avoided hers. Avery tried to press for details. Why a necklace? Why so expensive? But he became irritated, brushing it off as normal for client retention. That night, they ate the salmon in tense silence, and Avery's fear found a new foothold in her gut. She watched him closely in the days that followed, noticing a subtle shift in his behavior, the way he guarded his phone more closely, the quick glances at messages he claimed were from colleagues, and the constant mention of after-hours meetings. Red flags began stacking up, no longer ignorable. Her friend, Lillian, noticed her unease. Avery finally confessed her concerns over lunch at Le Pain Quotidien. Lillian listened intently, her eyebrows knitting together. "I hate to say this, Avery, but that necklace story sounds suspicious," she said, gently placing a hand over Avery's. "You have every right to be concerned. Maybe you should do some digging." And dig Avery did. One evening when Nicholas was in the shower, she quickly scrolled through his text messages on his laptop, which he'd left unlocked. It didn't take long to find the evidence she feared. A series of flirtatious messages between Nicholas and someone named Juliana. Their words were coded but unmistakable plans to meet after work, references to missing each other, and talk of buying something special for our future. The words, "our future," struck Avery like a sledgehammer. She felt her world tilt on its axis. For a moment, she thought she might faint. The bile rose in her throat, but she forced herself to keep reading, to confirm beyond any doubt the betrayal that was unfolding. But nothing, no apology or explanation, could prepare her for the heartbreak she felt. Pain turned into a surreal numbness. She confronted Nicholas a few nights later, brandishing the printed messages. He was furious at the invasion of his privacy, but ultimately admitted he and Juliana had crossed professional boundaries. He downplayed it, calling it a harmless flirtation and swearing it meant nothing. When Avery demanded to know if he was in love with Juliana, he couldn't give a straight answer, which spoke volumes. Avery spent that night at Lillian's apartment. She cried for hours, grappling with a mixture of rage and heartbreak. She yearned for the life they once had, a life that now seemed irreversibly fractured. Nicholas tried calling her repeatedly, but she ignored him, needing space to decide what came next. Little did she know, the betrayal ran much deeper than she could have ever imagined. The entire edifice of her marriage was about to come crashing down, revealing secrets more devastating than a simple affair. Soon she would discover Nicholas wasn't just involved with Juliana, he was plotting a future that would exclude Avery entirely. As days turned into weeks, Avery found herself oscillating between fury, despair, and an odd sense of calm acceptance. Nicholas tried to reassure her of his devotion, promising he had ended things with Juliana. But Avery's instincts refused to let her trust him blindly. Something about his demeanor told her he was hiding a secret more monstrous than mere infidelity. One evening, a close colleague of Nicholas's contacted Avery through a private message on social media. His name was Thomas Gilmore, a reserved but kindly man Avery remembered from several corporate gatherings. Thomas's message was concise. "I need to speak with you about Nicholas. Please call me when you can." Intrigued, Avery arranged to meet him at a small coffee shop near her apartment. Thomas arrived wearing a look of deep concern. Over a cup of strong espresso, he confessed that he disliked meddling, but felt compelled to warn Avery. "I've seen what Nicholas and Juliana are doing," he began, eyes darting nervously around the coffee shop. "It's not just an affair. Juliana has convinced him to, well, let's just say there's talk in the office about them planning an entirely new life together." Avery's heartbeat thundered in her ears. Her hands trembled as she set down her teacup. "What do you mean, a new life?" she asked, trying to maintain a composed facade. Thomas sighed, looking genuinely pained. "I overheard them discussing plans to get married. I know that sounds impossible, given that he's already married to you, but Juliana's been bragging to some people in the office about Nicholas wanting to start fresh." He paused, swallowing hard. "I'm sorry, Avery." Shock rippled through Avery. She hadn't thought Nicholas capable of such extreme treachery. Sure, an affair was vile enough, but bigamy? Or maybe they were planning a divorce so he could marry Juliana quickly. Either scenario felt like a gut punch. "Are you sure?" she whispered, eyes welling with tears. Thomas nodded, his expression somber. "I'm sure. I had hoped it was just wild rumors, but Juliana's wearing a ring on her necklace, a ring that looks suspiciously like an engagement band. She's also been making offhand remarks like, 'We'll be rid of that nuisance soon,' presumably referencing you." Avery's fingers dug into her palm, leaving crescent-shaped marks. She thanked Thomas for his honesty. He left, still looking remorseful, as though he wished he could have brought her better news. Avery remained at the coffee shop, shoulders shaking, tears slipping down her cheeks. The city bustle continued around her, oblivious to her heartbreak. That night, Avery confronted Nicholas once more. His initial reaction was to deny everything, but Avery pressed him relentlessly until his defensiveness cracked. "Yes," he finally admitted, tears in his own eyes. "I love Juliana. She makes me feel alive, and she's been pushing me to start over." When Avery asked about the ring on Juliana's necklace, he grew quiet, confirming her worst suspicions. They were engaged. Stunned, Avery asked if he intended to file for divorce. Nicholas lowered his head, shame pooling in his expression. "We haven't discussed the details. We plan to keep it quiet for now." In disbelief, Avery asked him to leave their apartment, to which he agreed without much protest. He packed a bag that night, offering only feeble apologies. Once he was gone, Avery sank onto the living room couch, numb. The man she had devoted her life to was planning a wedding with another woman while still legally bound to her. For Avery, it felt like the end of the world, yet a small, determined spark inside her refused to be snuffed out. She didn't know exactly how or when, but she would regain her footing. And as fate would have it, she would soon discover a surprising, if not entirely shocking, turn in Nicholas and Juliana's plans, one that would open a new path for Avery to exact a measured, unforgettable response. Avery found solace in the simplest tasks, watering her houseplants, taking long walks in Central Park, and immersing herself in new freelance design projects. She refused to let the weight of betrayal bury her entirely. Instead, she journaled her thoughts, letting the pain flow out onto paper rather than consume her from within. Her inner circle rallied around her. Lillian offered a spare room for as long as Avery needed it. Though Avery chose to remain in her own home for the time being, she had grown attached to her apartment, the place where so many memories were born. Her mother and father called regularly from upstate, offering love and moral support. And Thomas, guilt-ridden over delivering the bad news, checked in every few days to see if she was holding up. One morning, as Avery browsed her email, a subject line caught her eye. Wedding invitation, Nicholas and Juliana. Her heart hammered. She nearly deleted it without reading, but morbid curiosity won. Clicking it open, she found a digital invitation that displayed swirling gold script on a background of white roses. The wedding was scheduled to take place at a private estate in the Hamptons, less than a month away. Avery felt a wave of shock. Nicholas was still legally married to her, yet here he was, sending out wedding invites to tie the knot with Juliana. Was this even legal, or had they filed some hush-hush divorce papers? She had received no notice, no agreement to sign. A swirling vortex of anger and confusion threatened to overwhelm her. But then a calm, almost eerie clarity settled upon her. In that moment, a seed of an idea took root. She called her lawyer, an old acquaintance named Caroline Wu. Caroline was appalled upon hearing about Nicholas's brazen move. "He can't marry someone else while still married to you," she emphasized. "This is not only immoral, it's illegal. Unless he's forging documents, that wedding has no legitimate standing." But Avery suspected that documents might indeed be forged. Juliana had an audacious streak, and Nicholas seemed blinded by infatuation. Rather than let panic drive her, Avery decided to do something unusual. She planned to attend the wedding, not to cause a scene, but to calmly present Nicholas with a gift he wouldn't expect. She didn't share the specifics of her plan with Caroline, only confirming that she intended to handle the situation with discretion. The next few weeks moved in a blur. Avery found out through office gossip that Nicholas had been taking time off, likely for wedding preparations. Meanwhile, Juliana openly flaunted her engagement ring, confident that her rival Avery was too demoralized to interfere. They had no clue that Avery was quietly collecting every shred of evidence she could: phone records, text messages, financial statements. She even discovered a suspicious deposit to an unknown account in the Cayman Islands, which Nicholas seemed to have set up. The deeper she dug, the more layers of deceit she uncovered. Thomas helped by discreetly forwarding office memos and emails that proved Nicholas and Juliana were using corporate funds to pay for wedding expenses. This financial impropriety could get them both in serious trouble if revealed to the higher-ups. But Avery had bigger plans. She wanted a moment that would not only shock Nicholas, but also ensure she walked away from this nightmare with her dignity and future secure. When the wedding day finally arrived, Avery dressed in a simple yet elegant black cocktail dress. She might be the scorned wife, but she would not let that define her. With an air of poise and a heart pulsing with apprehension, she set off for the private estate in the Hamptons. She carried a small, neatly wrapped box, a gift for the bride and groom. Its contents would change the course of the day, sending Nicholas into a spiral of panic he never saw coming. The estate in the Hamptons was breathtaking. A long, tree-lined driveway led up to a sprawling mansion perched by the sea. The event staff bustled around in crisp uniforms, ensuring everything was perfect for the ceremony. White chairs stood in neat rows on the lawn, facing an ornate archway draped with delicate blossoms. Avery could taste the salt in the air as she stepped out of the taxi, the ocean breeze stirring her hair. She approached the check-in table, where a poised woman with a clipboard inquired, "Name?" Please? Avery hesitated for a split second before offering a confident smile. I'm Avery Evans, she said, using Nicholas's last name for emphasis. The woman scanned her list. A flicker of confusion crossed her face. Avery suspected she wasn't actually on the invited list, but after a moment, the woman waved her through, perhaps out of intimidation or courtesy. No one wanted a scene at an elegant event like this. As Avery mingled discreetly among the guests, she caught snippets of conversation. Many were congratulating Nicholas and Juliana on finding each other. Some, apparently close friends of the bride and groom, talked openly about how he was stuck in an unhappy marriage. Avery's jaw clenched at the lies being told so casually. She clutched the small, wrapped box, steadying herself with measured breaths. Near the archway, she spotted Nicholas in a tailored suit, shaking hands with an older man who appeared to be giving last-minute instructions. Then there was Juliana, resplendent in a lacy white gown that hugged her every curve. She radiated confidence, a triumphant smile playing on her lips. The officiant stood ready to begin, glancing at his watch. A hush fell over the gathering as the ceremony was about to commence. Nicholas walked to the front, and Juliana took her position, bouquet in hand. Just as the officiant started speaking, Avery calmly stepped forward from her seat in the back row. Heads turned, and a murmur rippled through the crowd. Nicholas's eyes fell on her, and she could practically see his heart drop into his stomach. Juliana's initial confusion morphed into a glare of pure venom. Before you begin, Avery said, her voice surprisingly steady, I have a gift for the bride and groom. She held up the small box, elegantly wrapped in gold paper. A few curious onlookers edged closer, fascinated by this unexpected interruption. Juliana shot Nicholas a look that screamed, Handle this. What is this? Nicholas stammered, stepping forward. His complexion had gone pale. Avery smiled serenely. Just a token of my good wishes for your new beginning. There was an unmistakable edge to her tone. She extended the box, which Nicholas reluctantly took. In that moment, the entire crowd seemed to hold its breath. Some guests recognized Avery from corporate events, Nicholas's wife. Their eyes darted around, uncertain whether to flee or watch the drama unfold. Nicholas opened the gift with trembling hands. Inside, he found a slim folder and a USB drive. What is this? He repeated, his voice cracking. Avery's eyes flashed with a calm intensity. I like to call it your wedding present. You'll find documents that prove you and Juliana used company funds to pay for personal expenses, including this lavish affair. There are also digital records of your text messages plotting against me, planning to hide your finances and siphon money into secret accounts. And, of course, proof that you are still very much legally married to me, which makes this wedding here illegal. An audible gasp swept the crowd. Juliana snatched the folder and flipped through the pages, her face turning a furious shade of red. This is nonsense, she hissed. None of it can be true. But Nicholas recognized the authenticity. The color drained from his face as he realized the magnitude of what Avery had just handed him. If these documents found their way to the authorities, or even worse, to the company's board, he would be ruined, possibly facing charges for embezzlement. Panic flickered across his features. Juliana stared daggers at Avery, as if willing her to vanish. The officiant, clearly unsettled, exchanged worried glances with the nearest guests, uncertain how to proceed. Avery simply turned to go, leaving an icy hush in her wake. She stopped mid-aisle and glanced back at Nicholas. Congratulations, she said, her voice dripping with measured finality. May you and Juliana find all the happiness you deserve. With that, she walked away, ignoring the hushed chaos erupting behind her. She could hear Nicholas stammering half-baked explanations to stunned onlookers. Juliana was frantically denying everything, but Avery knew her carefully curated gift spoke volumes more than words ever could. Avery's adrenaline surged as she left the estate, crossing the manicured lawn back to the driveway. Although she appeared outwardly composed, her heart hammered in her chest. She'd spent weeks preparing for this moment, quietly collecting financial ledgers, pulling conversation logs, and verifying that Nicholas had no legal grounds to remarry. Yet even with thorough planning, the magnitude of confronting them in public had left her breathless. She had rented a small cottage nearby for a few days, anticipating she might need privacy after the confrontation. Once inside, she collapsed onto a floral armchair, running her hands through her hair as her mind replayed the scene. The stunned faces, Juliana's fury, Nicholas's pale panic, every detail was etched into her memory. An hour later, Avery's phone buzzed continuously. She finally glanced at it, seeing messages from unknown numbers, presumably wedding guests or Nicholas's colleagues. Some were outraged by Nicholas's duplicity. Others curiously asked for the full story. Avery turned the phone to silent mode, unwilling to entertain anyone's queries at that moment. She'd said her piece, the rest was up to them. Late that night, she received an unexpected text from Nicholas. "We need to talk, please." She ignored it. A second message followed. "I never meant for things to go this far. Juliana pushed me. I'm sorry." Avery still didn't respond. Hours later, another text arrived. "Call me. I'm begging you." She turned off the phone entirely, giving herself permission to rest. By the next morning, the story had begun to circulate on social media. A few acquaintances from Nicholas's firm posted cryptic updates about major scandal at a Hamptons wedding. Avery's quiet confrontation had evidently become the talk of the corporate circuit. She scrolled through the posts while sipping coffee, half amused, half saddened that her personal heartbreak had morphed into online gossip. Despite the swirling scandal, Avery felt a sense of relief that she had taken control of her narrative. For months, she'd been the unwitting victim. Now, she'd shone a spotlight on the truth, letting the chips fall where they may. The weight on her chest felt lighter, even if her future remained uncertain. Meanwhile, Nicholas was scrambling to salvage his shredded reputation. He reached out to the company's legal department, hoping to bury the evidence of embezzlement and hush up the wedding fiasco. But Avery's carefully compiled documents were too damning to dismiss. Rumors flew that the board of directors was calling for an internal investigation. Over the next few days, Nicholas found himself cornered in every direction. Co-workers turned cold, superiors demanded explanations, and Juliana, fearing legal repercussions, seemed to vanish into thin air. Avery finally turned her phone back on to find a flood of voicemails from Nicholas, each more desperate than the last. In one, he pled for forgiveness, claiming he'd been manipulated by Juliana. In another, he threatened legal action for public humiliation, though he seemed to realize that approach wouldn't hold water given the illegal nature of his second wedding attempt. Then came a trembling knock at her cottage door. She peered through the peephole to see Nicholas, disheveled and bleary-eyed. Avery's stomach fluttered with nervous energy, but she opened the door a crack. "What do you want?" she asked coldly, not moving aside to let him in. His voice was hoarse. I need to talk, Avery. Please." She studied him for a moment. This man, once her beloved husband, now stood before her as a stranger. 5 minutes, she said curtly, stepping back to let him enter. He hesitated, his eyes scanning the cozy but unfamiliar surroundings, then found a chair at the small kitchen table. Avery remained standing, arms crossed. "Speak." Nicholas drew in a shaky breath. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I never meant to hurt you like this." Juliana was persuasive. She convinced me that we could build a better life together, that you and I were too different. And then things just spiraled. Avery felt anger simmer just beneath the surface. And you decided to commit fraud and bigamy because you were persuaded? He ran his hands over his face, suddenly looking drained. I was a fool. I can't undo what's been done, but I'm begging you, please, don't release that evidence to the board or the authorities. My entire career, my life, it'll be over. His words hit a nerve. There it was, the real reason he'd come. Panic, preservation. Avery's eyes narrowed. She had expected an apology but not a plea for her silence. You're only here to protect yourself. He attempted to protest, but Avery cut him off with a raised hand. She spoke quietly, firmly, leaving no room for negotiation. You destroyed our marriage and tried to replace me like I was a disposable placeholder. I owe you nothing. This evidence? It's proof of your lies and wrongdoing. Whether I let it go or not is my choice, but don't expect me to do you any favors. The hush that followed was thick and heavy. Nicholas bowed his head, silent tears trickling down his cheeks. Avery felt a pang of pity, remembering the kind man she once adored. But her resolve stood firm. Actions had consequences, and Nicholas was about to face them in full. After Nicholas's pleading visit, Avery spent the evening wrestling with her conscience. Part of her wanted to walk away, entirely file for divorce, hand over the evidence, and let Nicholas reap the whirlwind he had sown. Another part felt the weight of their shared history pressing down on her. She could still recall those early, happy years of laughter and love, the promises they made under a canopy of vines in the Hudson Valley. Was there room for mercy? She reached out to Caroline Wu, her lawyer, for guidance. Caroline was unequivocal. If you want the maximum legal protection and fair settlement, exposing his misconduct could work in your favor. But do not let pity cloud your judgment. He has shown you what he's capable of. That night, Avery dreamed of the vineyard where she and Nicholas exchanged vows. In the dream, the vines turned brittle and snapped away from her grasp, leaving her alone in a withering field. She woke up in a sweat, her heart pounding. Yet the symbolic nature of the dream felt clarifying. Their marriage was irreparably broken, and she needed to stand firm for her own future. Over the following week, the corporate investigation ramped up. The board subpoenaed Nicholas's personal accounts. Emails and text messages were combed through. Though Avery had yet to publicly release her own trove of evidence, rumors suggested that someone had more incriminating details. Nicholas, facing intense scrutiny, remained suspended from his role at the firm pending the outcome. Meanwhile, Juliana was nowhere to be found. Gossip in the office indicated she'd fled on an extended vacation, but some believed she was hiding out to avoid the scandal, possibly exploring job prospects elsewhere. Avery heard from Thomas that Juliana's desk was cleared overnight, no goodbye notes left behind. It was as if she had never existed. With each passing day, Avery regained a sense of autonomy. She resumed her graphic design projects, finding comfort in creative expression. She even booked a weekend retreat at a small wellness spa to nurture her emotional well-being, enjoying yoga by the sea and herbal massages. For the first time in months, she felt like she could breathe. On the final night of her spa retreat, Avery found herself lying awake, staring at the ceiling. The events of the past weeks were still surreal to her. She had never envisioned herself as someone who would orchestrate a public takedown, yet she couldn't ignore the sense of justice that stirred within her. Nicholas needed to learn that his actions had severe consequences. And if Juliana thought she could waltz into a man's life and overshadow a rightful spouse so easily, she, too, deserved a harsh lesson. Upon returning home, Avery received a call from a high-ranking partner at Nicholas's firm, a woman named Cynthia Brooks. Cynthia politely requested a meeting, stating that she believed Avery held valuable information about Nicholas's financial irregularities. "We'd like to settle this matter swiftly," Cynthia said, her tone measured. "If it goes to trial, it will be messy for everyone." Avery agreed to meet at the firm's downtown office. When she arrived, she was ushered into a sleek conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bustling city. Cynthia offered a firm handshake and introduced two other partners. There, Avery laid out what she had discovered, copies of suspicious bank transactions, matching them to corporate accounts. She also referenced the personal messages that indicated Nicholas and Juliana plotted to use firm resources for their own gain. Cynthia listened intently. "This is quite serious," she said, tapping her perfectly manicured nails on the desk. She exchanged looks with the other partners. "We appreciate your candor, Miss Evans. Obviously, we have enough to press charges if we choose, but we'd rather keep this out of a public court if possible." Avery understood that corporations often preferred damage control over public spectacles. After all, a scandal could erode client trust. "What do you propose?" she asked, voice steady. "We plan to terminate Nicholas's employment," one of the partners interjected. "As for the funds misused, he'll be required to repay every cent, plus a penalty. And if we find any other irregularities, we won't hesitate to pursue legal action." Avery nodded. She felt a swirl of emotions, vindication, sadness, and a touch of relief. She'd come a long way from the naive wife who doubted her own instincts. "I'm filing for divorce," she stated, gazing out the window. "I trust that the information I've provided here remains confidential and won't hamper my own legal proceedings." Cynthia gave a sympathetic smile. "We understand. We'll do our part to ensure this doesn't blow back on you." Avery left the meeting feeling a weight lifted off her shoulders. Nicholas was losing his career, his illicit wedding, and perhaps his mistress. The consequences were stacking up. But the road ahead still held many complexities. Would Nicholas fight the divorce? Would he try to manipulate her once again? Avery didn't have all the answers, but she felt the stirrings of newfound courage. Back at her apartment, Avery discovered an envelope slid under her door. Inside was a handwritten note on simple white paper. "Avery, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. But please, I beg you let me explain my side. Not everything is as it seems. Meet me at the Metropolitan Museum of Art main lobby tomorrow at 2 p.m. Juliana." Avery's initial response was to crumple the note and toss it away. She had no desire to meet the woman who had so brazenly tried to usurp her place. Yet something in Juliana's tone piqued her curiosity. "Not everything is as it seems," she had written. Could there be another layer to this twisted saga? The next day, after much deliberation, Avery found herself stepping through the grand entrance of the Met. The iconic staircase leading up to the museum's colossal columns was packed with tourists snapping photos. Inside, the lobby buzzed with visitors consulting maps and docents. Sure enough, sitting on a bench near the giant Egyptian statue was Juliana. She wore oversized sunglasses and a black coat, as if attempting to hide in plain sight. Avery approached cautiously, arms folded. Juliana removed her sunglasses, revealing tired eyes. She motioned for Avery to sit beside her. When Avery remained standing, Juliana took a shaky breath. "Thanks for coming. I wasn't sure you would." Avery's voice was clipped. "I'm not sure why I did. You have 5 minutes." Juliana bit her lip, glancing around as though afraid of being overheard. She spoke in a hushed tone. "Nicholas told me you two were separated and planning to divorce. He said you were the one who wanted out. By the time I realized that was a lie, I was in too deep. Why, I was wrong to pursue him once I saw the signs. But he kept insisting you were toxic, controlling. I believed him." Avery remained stone-faced. She remembered how Nicholas had spun stories to justify his own deception. Still, that didn't absolve Juliana for knowingly participating in an affair once the truth became apparent. "Why are you telling me this now?" Juliana sighed, slumping against the bench. "Everything's blown up in my face. Nicholas was my ticket to a better life. I know that sounds cruel, but I'm just being honest. Now he's lost his job, and I'm basically blacklisted in the industry. No one wants to hire the woman who tried to marry a married man. I can't believe he had the gall to hold that wedding when he hadn't even finalized a divorce. The humiliation. She trailed off, looking genuinely crestfallen. Avery studied her. She'd always seen Juliana as a cunning homewrecker, but here she was, seemingly remorseful, her ambitions crushed. "So what do you want from me?" Juliana fiddled with her sunglasses, her expression pained. "Closure, maybe. An apology. I know it doesn't change what happened, but I'm sorry. I never should have gone along with his lies. And I guess I wanted you to know he deceived me too. He told me you two were over, and I was naive enough to believe him." A wave of conflicting emotions washed over Avery. She had always cast Juliana as the villain, the seductress who intentionally lured Nicholas away. Now she saw hints of a vulnerable woman who had also been manipulated, though certainly not blameless. "That doesn't excuse your choices," Avery said quietly, "but I appreciate you telling me." Juliana nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I know. Thank you for hearing me out. For what it's worth, I'm leaving New York. I have nothing left here. I just hope you can find some peace." They sat in silence for a moment, the bustling museum crowd passing by as if the two women were invisible. Then Juliana rose, placing her sunglasses back on. She offered a small, sad smile before merging into the throng of visitors. Avery watched her go, feeling a bizarre sense of closure. She left the museum, stepping out onto Fifth Avenue, the sun reflecting off the gilded facade of the neighboring buildings. She wasn't quite sure how to process this new perspective. Nicholas had lied not just to her, but also to Juliana, weaving a tapestry of deceit that ensnared them both. A flicker of pity for Juliana surfaced in Avery's heart, though it was overshadowed by exhaustion from months of turmoil. That evening, Avery wrote in her journal, "I met Juliana today." She apologized. She was also betrayed. Maybe we're both victims of Nicholas. Then she closed the notebook, deciding to let the matter rest. Soon she would finalize her divorce proceedings, forging a path free from the entanglements of Nicholas's treachery. The hardest part was nearly over, she hoped. The week following her unexpected meeting with Juliana passed in a blur of appointments and paperwork. Avery worked closely with Caroline Wu to finalize divorce documents that cited irreconcilable differences and documented Nicholas's flagrant infidelity. Given the evidence of financial misconduct, Avery had leverage to negotiate a fair settlement that would free her from any joint debts Nicholas might have incurred. Meanwhile, the corporate investigation concluded with a damning report. Nicholas had, indeed, siphoned funds for personal expenses, including wedding costs for his ceremony with Juliana. He was officially fired and could face civil litigation from the firm's board. Rumors circulated that some clients were also considering their own legal action. Avery maintained a cool distance from Nicholas. His calls went unanswered, his texts unread. She only communicated through her lawyer. She knew he was spiraling. Thomas mentioned hearing him rant about how everyone abandoned me. Avery found little sympathy left in her heart. One morning, Caroline called with news. Nicholas signed the divorce papers. He waived any claim to the apartment, which is good for you. It looks like he's too tied up in his legal battles to fight a property dispute. Avery exhaled a deep, shaky breath. "That's a relief," she murmured. "So, it's final?" "Not quite, but it's nearing the end. The judge just needs to finalize it. You'll likely be completely free in a matter of weeks," Caroline explained, her tone encouraging. That night, Avery pulled a bottle of champagne from the fridge, a gift from Lillian that she'd been saving. She popped it open, pouring a solitary toast to herself. Outside her window, the city lights glittered, each shining orb a reminder that life continued beyond her heartbreak. She sipped the sparkling liquid, letting the bubbles tickle her nose, feeling an odd mix of melancholy and hope. Her phone buzzed with a message from Lillian. "Dinner tomorrow night. My treat. Let's celebrate your fresh start." Avery smiled, typing back a quick yes. Lillian had been her rock through this nightmare, never wavering in her loyalty. As she set the phone aside, Avery thought about the woman she was becoming, someone who had faced betrayal head-on and still managed to remain standing. The next day, she met Lillian at a chic bistro near Times Square. They snagged a corner booth and indulged in gourmet pasta. Lillian insisted they order a fancy dessert to mark the occasion. Over a decadent chocolate torte, she clinked her wine glass against Avery's. "To you, the strongest woman I know. I'm so proud of how you've handled all this." Avery smiled, warmth flooding her cheeks. "I couldn't have done it without you, Lil." They finished the meal and stepped outside into the neon glow of Times Square. A slight drizzle fell, reflecting the vibrant lights in shimmering puddles. Lillian waved a cab, hugging Avery tight before climbing in. "Call me tomorrow," she shouted as the taxi pulled away. Turning to walk home, Avery marveled at how different her life had become. The heartbreak still lingered, but she felt a strange exhilaration at the idea of starting over. Before she could savor the feeling too long, a figure emerged from the shadows of a nearby building. Nicholas. He looked gaunt and haggard, eyes rimmed with desperation. Avery's stomach lurched. She'd been careful to avoid him, yet here he was. "Avery," he said, voice cracking. "I've been waiting for you." Avery tensed, stepping backward. "How did you know I'd be here?" she demanded, trying to keep her voice steady. He rubbed his hands together nervously. "Lillian posted a picture of you two at dinner, tagged the restaurant. I had to see you." Rain dripped from his hair, streaking down his face. An uncomfortable tension coiled in Avery's chest. "We have nothing left to discuss. I'm finishing the divorce. This is over." His eyes flickered with despair. "I've lost my job. My reputation is ruined." Juliana left. "I have nothing, Avery, nothing." He reached for her hand, but she recoiled. "You made your bed," she said, steeling her resolve. "Lie in it." Nicholas's breathing hitched. I know you owe me nothing, but can we at least talk? Hear me out." I wasn't in my right mind. Juliana filled my head with all these promises. Avery cut him off, her voice colder than she'd ever heard it. "Stop blaming Juliana. You made choices, Nicholas. You lied, cheated, and tried to replace me without even finalizing our marriage. The only reason I'm here listening is because I once loved you, but that love is gone." A flicker of remorse passed over his features, followed by a flash of anger. "You ruined me," he hissed. "The evidence you handed over? The wedding fiasco? That's what destroyed my career." Avery felt her blood boil. "You destroyed your own career. I just shone a light on it. Don't you dare try to put that on me." Her voice rose, echoing against the wet pavement. The rain intensified, soaking both of them. Nicholas looked ready to argue, but a weariness settled over him. He hung his head. "I'm sorry," he said once more, "but it was hollow." He turned and strode away, disappearing into the neon-lit crowd of Times Square. Avery stood there, breathing hard. The city's lights blurred in the drizzle, but she felt more resolute than ever. She wrapped her coat tighter, hailed a cab, and went home. She realized in that moment that she had moved beyond pity or heartbreak. In its place was a sense of finality. Nicholas was her past. Her future was hers to shape. The final divorce hearing arrived quicker than Avery anticipated. Despite the tension and the swirl of memories, she remained composed, clad in a simple yet stylish navy suit that mirrored her resolute demeanor. Across the courtroom, Nicholas looked drained, his once sharp features dulled by sleepless nights and the weight of legal battles. He avoided eye contact as the judge reviewed the settlement agreement. Caroline Wu presented the evidence succinctly, underscoring Nicholas's infidelity and financial misconduct. There were no objections from Nicholas's side. His new lawyer, an overburdened public defender, given Nicholas's precarious finances, only requested leniency on the timeline for restitution. The judge, unimpressed with the entire fiasco, granted a structured schedule for Nicholas to repay what he owed to the firm. Meanwhile, Avery would receive the apartment free and clear, along with a modest spousal settlement. After the judge formally ended the marriage, Avery stepped out of the courtroom, exhaling a breath she felt she had been holding for months. Nicholas trailed behind her, as if contemplating one last plea. But he said nothing, simply offering a sorrowful glance. For a fleeting moment, Avery remembered the man she had once adored, the love that had warmed her heart. Then she reminded herself of the web of betrayal, the brazen second wedding, and the humiliations she'd endured. She gave him a curt nod and turned away. Back in her apartment, Avery stood amid packed boxes. She had decided to sell the place. Although the court granted it to her, she felt it was haunted by too many memories. She planned to move closer to Lillian's neighborhood, in a different part of the city, somewhere she could genuinely start fresh. Friends would help her haul out the last of the furniture tomorrow. Before taping up the final box, she glanced at her old wedding album, the cover layered with dust. Carefully, she opened it. There they were, she and Nicholas in the vineyard, beaming with naive hope. It was bittersweet to see how happy they once were. She removed a single photo, the one of them cutting their wedding cake, and tucked it into a keepsake folder. The rest she placed gently in a donation box, deciding to let it go. As she carried a load of items to the curb for donation pickup, her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. After a moment's hesitation, she answered. "Hello?" A soft female voice said. "Avery? It's Juliana." Avery froze. She thought Juliana had disappeared from her life. "How did you get this number?" Juliana sighed. "I asked Thomas. I hope it's okay. I'm calling to tell you I've left New York. I'm out west, trying to rebuild my life." Avery nodded to herself. "I see. Good luck." There was a pause. Then Juliana's voice wavered. "I just wanted to thank you for hearing me out at the Met, and for reminding Nicholas that actions have consequences. He tried to contact me, but I blocked him. I hope you find peace." Avery sensed genuine gratitude in her tone. "I hope you do too," she replied, softly, ending the call with an unexpected pang of relief. She placed her phone in her pocket, feeling the last vestiges of resentment begin to slip away. Later that evening, she invited Lillian and Thomas over for takeout pizza amid the chaos of half-empty rooms. They sat on the living room floor, cardboard boxes as tables, sharing laughter that felt rejuvenating. Thomas shyly admitted he was dating someone new from the finance department. Lillian joked about her disastrous Tinder escapades, drawing snorts of laughter from Avery. In that simple, supportive atmosphere, Avery realized she was truly on the path to healing. Nicholas had been her anchor once, but now she was buoyed by her own strength and the unwavering support of real friends. After the dinner, she bid them goodbye, promising a proper housewarming once she found a new place. Alone, she stood by the window for the last time, gazing at the city lights. The heartbreak and betrayal were real, but so was her resilience. She recalled the wedding fiasco, the hush that fell over the guests when she handed Nicholas that damning folder. She thought of the quiet determination that had guided her through the darkest days. Let the memory serve as a reminder that she had emerged victorious from a storm designed to break her. Tomorrow, she would begin the next chapter of her life, free from the shadows of Nicholas and Juliana. She placed her palm on the cool window glass, allowing herself a gentle smile. Then she turned off the lights, leaving behind the space that once held so many dreams, ready to embrace the wide-open possibilities of a future on her own terms. Thank you for following Avery's journey. From the raw heartbreak of discovering her husband's betrayal to her poised confrontation at the wedding, and finally to her empowering escape from a toxic marriage. Her story reminds us that sometimes the darkest storms reveal our deepest reserves of strength, and that betrayal can be the catalyst for profound personal growth. If this dramatic tale resonated with you, please like this video, share it with someone who might find hope or inspiration in Avery's resilience, and subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories of courage, redemption, and life's surprising twists. Your support allows us to continue producing content that tackles real-life challenges and celebrates the unbreakable spirit within us all. From shattered vows to new beginnings, Avery found her voice and her freedom. May her victory inspire you to claim your own, no matter the odds. Thank you for watching.